Okay, welcome everyone again to planning and implementing a new IELCE IET program. My name is Lori Howard. I'm the CASAS Program Specialist Coordinator, and I'm looking forward to working with you today on your new IELCE IET programs. This was designed for people new to IELCE who are starting new programs. So if you've been involved in this for a while, you may find this repetitive, but hopefully you will get something new out of it. So today, I hope that you, you can have one of a couple of things. If you prefer to write, you can have a paper and pencil that you'll need to write something down. Actually, I'd like everybody to have that, if you would. And then for the action plan, I'm going to either ask you to write it on your paper or use your computer. At that point, you can view, exit full screen, excuse me, and then type in your computer. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is give you an overview of the IELCE program, just to make sure we're all sort of on the same page, although as I said, you may have to gather a little bit more background, and I'll mention what that could be. So first of all, here are the IELCE 243 components. They include adult education and literacy, which in our case in California is ESL. They include workforce preparation, which in California includes all the things that workforce preparation would be, along with our civic objectives and additional assessment plans, or COAPs. We'll be talking more about that. And then it includes workforce training, as in California we call CTE. And all of this together is integrated education and training, and that's why I sometimes put that little slash there, so you know that in doing this IELCE, we are working on an integrated education and training program. And so I'm going to give you a few rules from OCTAE, the national, the federal adult education program, just so you're sure you understand it. So the federal government has given funds in order for states to do an IELCE program, and they say it must be designed to prepare English language learners for and place in unsubsidized employment in in-demand industries and occupations that lead to economic self-sufficiency. And in California, we decided that this would be only for English language learners until now, and our idea is to place them in employment. So what we're trying to do is offer English support that will allow students to participate in training, perhaps with fewer skills than we might originally have thought they could have. And then with that English and training, get them into jobs. So that's the purpose of the grant money that you, I assume, have gotten if you have 243 funds. And the IELCE requirements are in these two presentations, and all of the state requirements are in this IELCE 243 presentation, which was done at the orientation for new administrators, and I know some of you participated in that, and that's terrific. And the other one is the EL Civics Basics, Civic Participation and IELCE requirements. So if you're not familiar with these, please after this session go to these requirements, because that will help you a lot. Okay, so I just want to go over a little bit more about this program and the CDE rules. These are some important elements that you need to include in your program. Again, as I showed you in that chart, we have adult literacy, workforce preparation, and workforce training, which we use CTE. And it must be taught concurrently in an either co-teaching or alternate teaching model. And here are the definitions for co-teaching and alternate teaching. And it must be taught contextually using a single set of learning objectives. Okay, and we're going to talk about that. And then English language learners need to have the opportunity to be co-enrolled in workforce training. Everyone doesn't necessarily have to be in workforce training, but they have to have the opportunity to do so. And some other important elements are a community and student needs assessment. And again, we're going to go over these a little bit more in depth. And support services that include recruitment of students, orientation, counseling, navigation, transition assistance, and elimination of barriers. And then program coordination elements, which include collaboration among your programs, your partners, your staff members, teachers, counselors, administrators, in general to plan the program, and then collaboration among teachers of ESL and workforce preparation and workforce training to develop your single set of learning objectives and incorporate the co-ops that are needed to be taught. And then finally, appropriate data collection. If you need to know more about developing a single set of learning objectives, there is a workshop called Developing a Single Set of Learning Objectives, which I've labeled here, and I'll, at the end in the resources, I'll show you where that is. And then again, as I mentioned, EL Civics Basics talks about development of co-ops. So now we're going to talk about the steps to IELCE 243 funded program implementation. Okay, so step one, and there are 4 steps. And step one is first identifying need and opportunity. So you might ask yourselves some questions at this first step. What employment opportunities exist in your area? And of those employment opportunities, which do you think your English language learners could participate in, get a job in, or be interested in getting a job in? How does your agency stay current on employment opportunities? Are your CTE teachers working on that? Do you have an advisory committee? Do you work with your WIB, for example? Those are all questions you want to ask yourself. What training opportunities exist with your at your agency or with your agency partners, like a community college or a private a CBO? What training is already being offered in your community? And again, what training programs do your English learners want to participate in, and what programs could they participate in if they had English support? So all of those are questions you'd want to ask yourself at step one. And you'd want to do a survey, okay? And you want to survey, if you haven't already, your business community, your community partners, within your current program, look at your CTE program, look at your ESL and what kind of support you could offer. And you'd want to survey your students. So very important to be assessing the needs of all of these groups. So right now, I'd just like you to take that piece of paper I asked you to have and make a list on your paper. What kinds of job opportunities are there in your school community? And which workforce training programs does your agency or another agency in your area already offer? So take a minute and just brainstorm a list answering both of these questions, please. Please consider the job or training opportunities there are in your school community. And if your agency offered English support, what kinds of training might your English learners be interested in or be able to participate in? So if you would circle the possible workforce training on the list you've already made. Okay, so I'm glad you have these ideas, but you probably also want to do a more formal survey of your community. So if you need to do that, then you would be following these steps. So you'd want to survey your community for job opportunities, decide which job training your agency or partner agencies can offer, and then you'd want to discuss with your CTE and ESL teachers what level of ESL learners could participate in the training. And knowing that your CTE program might have requirements now, but that if you work with them and have them work with an ESL teacher in a co-teaching or alternate teaching model, that they may be able to admit learners of a lower English level. And that is the point of this program, not to wait till students already speak English, but to help them learn the English they need to succeed in the job training and on the job. So that's the purpose of this program. So once you've done that, then you'll want to develop a needs assessment for your students about the job training and administer the needs assessment to learners to see what jobs they're interested in. We've had a few situations where agencies have had great programs, started programs, recruited students, and then after the end of the program, the students didn't want to get jobs, even though jobs were offered. All they really wanted to do was learn English. So I suggest that you try to avoid that by doing an in-depth needs assessment with your learners and make sure they actually want these jobs. There's no sense spending this money and this time and energy working with learners who don't really want to get a job. Please offer them other things. You can work with them with 231 funds. They can be in your school in other ways and take other courses, but only use these 243 funds for students who really want to work. Then you'll want to interpret the results. And in terms of when you interpret the results of the needs assessment, the programs you can offer and the programs your students want, then you want to, and once you choose those programs, you'll want to utilize the results to do some planning. And you'll want to select a workforce training course, a workforce preparation course, an adult literacy course. They could be all in one course if you are co-teaching, or they could be various configurations of either separate, totally 3 separate courses, or pairs of courses, depending on how you want to do it. You'll want to choose a teaching model, again, whether it's co-teaching or alternate teaching. You'll want to select your teachers and make sure your teachers have the credentials to do the training. And identify when you can offer them and make sure that you offer them at a time when your students can attend. Sometimes I see the training in the morning and the English support in the evening. I think in some cases that might work, but in general, really hard for students to come in the morning and then in the evening come back. So be careful with your schedule that it meets the needs of your students. And that's one of the things you might want to be assessing as well. As you ask what kinds of programs your students want to participate in. Then you need to develop the curriculum, instruction, and assessment related to the training that you're planning, including selection of existing civic objectives and COAPs, civic objectives and additional assessment plans. And there's also opportunity to select or create new ones. I just want to tell you very briefly about the COAPs, because that is the way you earn funding in an IELCE program, by offering at least 30 hours of instruction in a civic objective and assessing that. That is the way payment points are earned. So this is a crucial part of your IELCE program that would take place in your workforce preparation section of your instruction. So there are 29 civic objectives funded for IELCE 243, and they're related to workforce preparation and workforce training outcomes. There are some general ones. For example, the first one there is 33, identify and access employment and training resources, or 52, research, identify, and utilize soft skills related to succeeding in employment. Those are 2 really great ones that could be used in workforce preparation. But you want to make sure that those goals are things that happen in the training course, because whatever COAPs you choose must have content related to the training course. And so you may want to use some of these job-specific civic objectives, like the ones we have in the 70s, 70 through 75, accounting, building and construction, early childhood education, information technology, healthcare, and manufacturing. You can see the specific list at this link here at the bottom. And we encourage you to develop a new COAP or revise one that's already there to meet the needs of your learners. And I am happy to help you with that. So if you want to develop something new, then what you need to do is send me a brief description of the tasks that you think should be in your assessments, and then we can work together to develop your new COAP. Okay. The next step number 2, would be to provide support services. And you want to ask yourself, what kind of support services do your English learners need so they can access and succeed in training? And how will you learn this information? Again, through a survey, through one-on-one counseling, through group counseling. How will you learn this information? Very important. It's very important to access this, because if you don't know what kind of barriers to instruction students might have, you can't assist them. And some of the research tells us that without assistance, students cannot succeed in either academic or workforce training if there are too many barriers in front of them. And we'll talk a little bit more about what some agencies found out about that. But so this is the kind of thing you want to provide support services in, and you want to recruit students. So it's not enough to just have it available to students. You know, a lot of agencies have these programs, but you want to use this money to recruit and support and tell students they can participate in this. And sometimes that's bringing students who've already participated back to your ESL classes to show a success that can happen. So this needs to be active recruitment of students, not just offering. Orientation to students, and we found out that not only orientation, but follow-up to the orientation. Again, not enough to just tell what's there to orient the students, but to follow up. Did they follow through? What other information do they need, etc. And that all helps with the counseling, navigation, transition services, however, whatever you call it in your agency. Very important to use this money to provide these services. And as I mentioned, elimination of barriers to training and employment, talking about childcare, talking about transportation, time constraints, when they can come to class, and anything else that might come up. Okay, let's move on to step 3, facilitating program coordination. And so you'd want to ask yourself, how will your agency continue to involve your staff members, and they're all listed here, to work together to plan, implement, and improve your IELCE program? 4 years ago when we started this, some agencies just sort of handed this program off to a teacher and said, do this. This program cannot work without the collaboration of the administrator, the teachers, the counselors, the support staff. The only way this program can succeed is through that collaboration. The administrators need to communicate with the community and advisory boards and WIB boards, et cetera, or help their staff members to do so. They have to provide communication between their staff. Some agencies have very separate CTE and ESL staffs, and sometimes they're not able to work together. So the administrator needs to cause this working together to happen and provide paid time for this to happen. That is what the money is for. And the program will not succeed without that kind of assistance to collaborate. And not only collaborate at the beginning, but continued collaboration. You may need less as time goes on, but you will always need it. And so this is a list of the kind of collaboration. Again, collaboration among agencies and programs. So if you're going to be working with your community college or your CBO nearby, and the programs and staff members need to collaborate. Collaboration among teachers of ESL, workforce preparation, and workforce training. 2, develop and implement a single set of learning objectives. That is one of the requirements of your IELCE program. And so this single set of learning objectives needs to be worked on together to make sure that the content and the language skills are there to provide support to your English language learners. Again, if you need to know how to do that, there's a webinar, Developing a Single Set of Learning Objectives. I'll give you that resource at the end. And then incorporating co-ops. If you don't know about that, you need to look at the EL Civics Basics training. And if you have any questions after you do those 2 trainings, please feel free to contact me at lbhoward@casas.org. Another element of coordination is appropriate data collection. And again, you can learn about that in other webinars on the CASAS website. Okay, and step 4 is evaluate the program. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this today, but I want you to know that this is an important part. We don't just plan our programs and leave it. We need to evaluate it. So we want to ask ourselves these questions. How will you get feedback about the success of your program? How will you define success? How will you plan for continuous improvement? Because you have now, you are at the beginning of a 3-year grant. And so the CDE wants to see improvement over time, and you should want to see it too, so that you may have a small number of students attending now, but we hope that with your good planning and efforts that you will be growing your program as these 3 years go along. And then, of course, how and to whom will you share success of your future plans? Very important also. Don't keep it to yourself. In this next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about it. So in terms of evaluating and sharing the program, you want to do another, not a needs assessment this time, but a survey or evaluation of everybody that's working on the program or that you spoke to at the beginning, your community partners, your faculty, staff, your students. How's it going? And assess what went well and what you would change to improve, again, for continuous improvement. And how do you document that progress and plan your next steps? And then really great would be to share your success. It's very effective to have students come back to ESL classes and tell what success they've had. That encourages students to attend training or try to attend training. Teacher to teacher. Sometimes you need to just start with 2 very willing teachers, an ESL teacher and your training teacher. Just maybe one, and your whole staff is interested in doing it. But once they do it and then report back to the rest of the staff, then other teachers think it's a good idea, and then they climb on board. So don't underestimate the power of sharing your success. And again, you'd want to share it to the agency, from your agency, the Board of Education, and of course back to your community partners and your employers of how well things are going and how many people have been employed, etc. Because that's going to cause them to say, oh, I want to be involved too. I want to start a program to help in my job. Okay, and I just want to mention that IELCE, one of the IELCE requirements and part of the continuous improvement is this year called the CIP, the Continuous Improvement Plan. Again, you can learn more about that in some of the requirement webinars. But if you're an IELCE 243 funded program, you need to complete the CIP, and it will include a number of areas, but the one important for you is this third one, Integrated EL Civics Education Report. We think it will look very much like the plan that has been done in the past, or at least the majority of it will be that. And we will be having training on that as soon as we finalize what the plan or report looks like. And just so you know, the CIP is due to the CDE electronically on April 30th of each program year. And you may have noticed, if you've done the plan before, that a lot of the elements I'm talking about here as necessities or elements are the ones that will go into your plan. So if you're following this webinar and using all the elements I've talked about, then it should be very easy for you to just transfer that information to your report when you are able to write it. Okay, and I just want to mention here the continuous improvement cycle. There are these 5 elements. Again, once you have your program, you review and evaluate what has been done. You plan for changes in current or future programs. Once you make the changes, you do the implementation. Then you complete the CIP and tell what you've done or what your plan was for the year. And then you get feedback from all the ways we talked about just in that evaluation part, but also from your CDE consultant and your CASAS program specialist, because when you submit the CIP, your CIP plan will be reviewed and evaluated. And if it needs improvement, then you will receive targeted technical assistance, which is a great way to make sure you have all the components in place. So I wanted to show you a sample program, and I'm showing you this program in the format of the plan from last year, which I hope will be the report for this year, okay? But the reason I'm showing it to you, whether or not you have to do it like this, for me at least, it shows what a program can be. So I'm showing you the elements of it. So the CDE wants you to know your industry sector, and then your career pathway, and most importantly, your training program. Let's see if I can get that here. Yeah, and let me see if I can be good here and try to do a stamp. Here we go. So the most important thing is your training program. And so this one is going to be health careers, or in this case, I think the training program actually was intro to medical careers. You need to know your credential type. And in this case, in this example, it was a local agency certificate that meets CDE standards. If you want to know what the CDE standards are, you will need to contact your CDE consultant. And the specific certification in this case was a medical terminology certificate, as well as, yeah, a medical terminology certificate. And the model is co-teaching. That means that at least the workforce training and the workforce preparation is happening in the same classroom. So let's look over here at the left-hand side, and maybe you'll see my cursor, the workforce training. So in this case, and you can tell because they're labeled the same, the workforce preparation and the adult literacy is all happening in the same classroom. It's co-teaching. So you can tell that by the dates are the same, and the days are the same, and the times are the same. So this is a co-teaching situation. It's a 10-week program for a total of 60 hours. And then here, this year in our plan, we had this little place for a comment, which is really helpful to any reviewer, which says, the CTE teacher offers a secondary class time on Friday from 9 to 12. So since our system is such that you can't always put an extra different time in, then it was great to see in the comments what this was. And if you see the comments here, it said that the ESL teacher and the workforce training teacher are teaching together on Wednesdays, and then on Fridays, there's this extra class. So there's 2 days of training and 1 day of ESL support within the classroom. And it was described here in this way with the dates and times and this little comment to make sure we understood it. So I hope that's clear to you. And then they offered additional ESL courses if students wanted to participate on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so a day that the training and workforce preparation was not happening. Okay, we wouldn't necessarily have to, if you're talking about the report, you wouldn't necessarily have to put this additional ESL there. You could have put an intro to health careers in all 3 sections. Again, the way this report is written, and I will talk more about this in the future, is just to show that it's all happening at the same time. And if in co-teaching, you could have the same thing in each of these spaces, but to show that all 3 elements are there. So this makes it clear to me, I hope it makes it clear to you about how a course is designed and the hours and how the co-teaching model happens. One of the things that's important, as we talked about in planning and this agency in terms of doing an intro to health careers, the ESL teacher and the CTE teacher work together to develop a single set of learning objectives. At the bottom, you'll see that there's a training about how to develop a single set of learning objectives. This is a crucial element of your IELCE program. And so you'll see in here, the green words are words that are important language skills, describe in writing. And then in blue, you see the content, the training content. And ideally, the ESL teacher and the training teacher are working on this single set of learning objectives. The ESL teacher is supporting the language that's needed to help the student understand that these training elements, patient abuse, patient complaint, signs and symptoms of disease in the respiratory system, medical terminology. Those are the 4, I think 5 single set of learning objectives here, or learning objectives that are here. So if this is not clear to you, please do the training, but I just wanted to give an example from this Intro to Health Careers class. And if you notice, they just happen to mention that this is COAP 71.1. That's really nice to know that they are implementing the content of the COAP and it relates directly to the training. That's what we want to see here in the single set of learning objectives. Program coordination, I just want to mention some excellent practices that came up from a few of the agencies. Again, they found out that orientation and needs assessment and survey need to be done more than once. We can't just do it once and then never follow up on it. So that was crucial. One of the excellent practices was doing campus tours. So having the ESL students go to the CTE classes and look around or sit in. A number of agencies do that and incite some excitement about the training. And when they see other English language learners in that class, they go, oh, if they can do it, maybe I can do it too. So that's a really great possible thing to help with your program coordination and to help recruit students. One agency has CTE teachers visit ESL classes and even teach in the ESL class so that the ESL students would get used to that teacher and feel comfortable. One of the barriers for our English language learners, and I think for all learners, is that lack of security. To go to a big campus they've never been to before is really tough. To work with a teacher they don't know and have perhaps images about that it's going to be difficult for them. So anything we can do to make it all smaller, put the CTE class on your own campus that the student is familiar with. So many of those things that we think of as normal become barriers to our students. So think about that carefully. Really important, excellent practice, paid teacher collaboration time at the beginning, as I said, and continuing as needed. Continuous evaluation and improvement of course content and materials. So as the teachers work together in co-teaching or alternate teaching, they're going to find that they can do things differently or better, or that some things can be dropped and other things added. So very important. And again, the same continued assistance and navigation. It doesn't work to just talk to a student once. Continuing up, following up to make sure that they're following through. One of the things one of the agencies found was that the schedules were hard to read, that the web page that the student needed to go to register for the CTE class or future classes or testing was difficult to understand and read. And so students were stopped from being in this program because of the red tape involved in making it happen. So we don't always think about that registration might be hard. I, a few years ago, went to a community college campus and had to find a room. And even though I'm a native English speaker, I really found it hard to follow the map and get to the room I needed to get to, because some of these campuses are gigantic and difficult, and the parking is difficult, etc. So keep all of that in mind. Deadlines, help our students with deadlines, enrollment forms, registration, etc. So just want to mention those things. Okay, I would like you to see some model programs. And so I'm giving you some names of programs that you may or may not have seen. At the CAPE conference, Tamalpais Adult School gave a presentation, Becoming a Home Health Care Aide. If you're doing a home health care aide, I would suggest you view that program. And I worked with two instructors, Paige Endo and Sarah Walk, in the Intro to Health Careers. That was the model you just saw, and entrepreneurship. So you can go to the CAPE conference website. The link is here. If you were already registered, you just log in and go to the auditorium. You'll know what that is if you've done it before. If you didn't participate, you can now. You just have to register now, log in, and go to the auditorium and search for these sessions. Really great to hear an agency talk about their program. And you can see their slides and all of those things. So I highly recommend, if you're not aware of what a program looks like, that you listen to these workshops. And we'll be adding more of these to the EL Civics website, etc. Also, the Designing a Single Set of Learning Objectives webinar that was held in 2019, and there's a link to it on the IELTS civic participation page, has 2 agencies talking about their programs. One is Evelyn Jackson from Huntington Beach, and another is Elena Zimon from Fremont Adult School. And they talk about designing a single learning objectives, but within that, they talk about how they run their programs. So again, another program model to look at. So I highly recommend you doing that. Whoops, okay, good. And I want to mention that analyses of CASAS data, our pre and post testing, show that when students participate in IELTS IET programs, they have a higher % of level completions than those enrolled in ESL only. So not only are you training your students for a job, but you're improving their language skills. So it's really great to run these programs. Okay, so I just want to mention that. So what are your questions? Let me see if I have anything here. Okay. I don't see any questions, but feel free if you have any questions about this sample. Again, I hope we're taking a step from the new administrator orientation you may have done. We're going a step farther. And then I am planning some follow-up sessions for this that we can go farther and farther together. I don't see any questions, but feel free to type them in and I'll try to watch them. Oh, let me, okay. Okay.
Hey, Lori, this is Michelle.
Yes.
I do have one question. I typed it a little bit ago, but
who it is? State your name, Carla, and agency, if that's who it is.
No, Michelle Parsons, Antelope Valley.
Michelle, go ahead.
That's okay. No, my question was about the single set of learning objectives. I was curious as to maybe on this networking that we're doing, is there going to be a place that people can kind of share some that are already written or ones that are already approved and that will, you know, be accepted if we turn them in? Because I was watching the training on it and sometimes they weren't, you know, maybe specific enough or weren't written really well. So I was wondering if there was kind of a place that we could maybe go to kind of see some of those.
So on slide 35 of the training I mentioned, developing a, let me see what it is, what the name of it is. Not this one, but let's go back to that one. This one, developing a single set of learning objectives. There is a list of objectives, and this training here, developing a single set of learning objectives that CASAS did, goes step by step about what the elements are. And there's a model there too.
Yeah,
so
and I did view that, but I was curious if there was a place that, you know, kind of maybe where people list some of the ones they've written or that we think are good that we can kind of maybe, you know, use.
So we don't have that.
Okay.
But we could possibly make that. So why don't you suggest that in the chat, and I'll look at the chat and see that reminder, because
Sure.
we certainly could have some samples. You will also find samples in the specific training co-ops, right? So there's an accounting co-op, personal care aid co-op, now we're calling healthcare worker, childcare. All of those 6 co-ops have language and literacy objectives that could easily be one or more of your single set of learning objectives.
That's a good idea too. Okay, I'll put that in. Thank you.
You're welcome. And yeah, but if you follow that model, I think in this training and try to do what's there, if you have to put those in a report, again, that's the only place they would be looked at. But and if you run it by, you could run it by your program specialist or send it to me. If you would like that kind of feedback, we can give that to you. It's not required, but you'd be welcome to do that. Sorry, again, I went back for that. Okay, let's go forward. Okay, so now I want to give you some practice in writing an action plan, and you may, I just thought we would start here because I wasn't sure exactly where you all were. So this is what I'd like you to do. And I did send you a PDF. Oh, no. I sent you a Word version of an action plan to your computers and to your email addresses, those of you who registered. So you could access that now if you want, or you could take out your piece of paper and just write the things I'm asking you to. So you could do it one of two ways. So this is what I want you to do. Let's go over each one, and let me get my stamps here. And even though I find them annoying, I'll do it. Okay, so you can work alone, in a group, or with your team. What I'm thinking of doing is putting everyone in groups, because breakout groups you have to do. But if you don't want to be in a group, you can just leave the group, and don't feel upset about it, because I really intended most of you who did not come in teams, you'll probably want to work alone, because then you can work on your own content. When I put you in a group of 3 and you want to talk with someone else about what you're doing, that's great too. Okay, so either way, if you don't want to be in a group, don't be offended anyone, just leave the group, come back to the main room, and just work for your 15 minutes. I will close all the breakout rooms in 15 minutes, okay? And then we'll come back and talk about it. For those of you who came with a team, I have Michelle and Juan, Serena, Aaron, Jorge and Angelica, Latanya and Ibrahim, Carla and Karina. If I didn't mention your name,
Lori, Dan Cutler is with Serena, Aaron, Angelica, and Jorge.
okay, thank you. Anybody else who I'm missing?
Lupe Lozano is with Paul Diaz and Carrie Krogh.
And Carrie, okay. Anybody else?
Nina Cordero and Gloria Adame are together.
Okay, anybody else?
And Gilbert Laos with Ibrahim and Latanya.
Oh, okay, you're Gilbert, and you wondered where you were. Okay, great. Okay, I'm gonna try to put you in groups. I'm gonna start you out, maybe not in the group you should be in, but take this first few minutes to think about this task, okay? And then hopefully you'll get in a group, or you'll be working by yourself. Feel free to come out and talk to me or chat. And I'll get you in the groups after the first 5 minutes for sure, okay? So we've got the groups. Now, you're gonna use the action planner template. So I'm gonna show it to you on the next slide in just a minute. I also sent it to you. It also might be on the CASAS website at this point in the IELCE section. Or if none of those things work, just use a blank piece of paper and just write some items, okay? You might want to take a picture. If you don't have the template, I'm going to show it to you in a minute, and you can take a picture of it with your phone if you want to look at it. Or if you have the slides, it's on the slides. Okay, and then we want to work in the first 3 sections. There's an evaluation section, but we're not ready for evaluation yet. So work on the first number 1, 2, or 3, needs assessment, support services, and program coordination. Complete one item in each of those sections if you can. Again, if you want to just only work on needs assessment because that meets your needs, feel free. But I would like you to spend this 15 minutes doing some solid work on this and working with your team if you have, or just considering it yourself, what needs to happen, okay? And then if you have the slides, you can consult slides 13 to 28, which list in detail all the questions we talked about and all the straight information we talked about. And then if you're ready at the end of that 15 minutes, feel free to email it to me if I can. And if you want me to, I can show yours. But more than likely, we'll just talk about what your takeaway was. Okay, so again, you can, if you do it and you want to send it to me, you can take a picture and then email it to me at lbhoward@casas.org. You can email it to me in a week from now. That's fine too, if you want me to look at it. Or you can complete it on your computer on the Word document I gave to you. And we're going to take 15 minutes. Diana, I saw, and you have to ask permission for that, but I will do that. Where's Carla? There we go. Okay. What questions do you have before I show you the template? Okay, Diana, you're in. What questions do you have? Okay, let me show you the, oh gosh, let me show you the next slide. And this is the template. Okay, so let's look at it. And I'll try to annotate it again. So up at the top, what will you implement or change? What are the steps that need to be taken? Your tools, materials needed, the staff involved, and your target date, when you think you might complete it. So this will help you think about it. Now, I don't know where you are in the process, but here we are in November. And if you have this funding and if you haven't yet done anything, then you need to start immediately with a needs assessment. If you're already in this and you're just joining this group to improve what you've done, that's great too. Again, go back to the cycle I talked about. So wherever you are at the beginning, in the middle, or you're an expert at this already, try to use this action plan to assist you. So basically on the left-hand side here, I've just listed your needs assessment, your provide support services, and your facilitating program coordination and collaboration. And I'd like you to work on one of these things, and I've listed the different things here. So at least one of them. Think about your survey and how you would do it, or to who. If you have your results already, how would you determine which one you would do, and what your class schedule might look like, or who you would get to develop the curriculum. So you might fill in the staff and when it has to be done. Then you want to think about recruitment, orientation, counseling, elimination of barriers. Choose again one of them that you think you can deal with, what materials you might need or information you might need. Maybe you have to look at the requirements of civic participation to know a bit more about that, or some research at CalPro or AIR would help you know more about elimination of barriers. Okay, and then who's the staff involved and the target date. The third one, again, coordination. How are you going to coordinate? How are you going to get the money? Who are you going to find out how you get money to support your teachers in this, et cetera, et cetera. Lastly, just to tell you, today we talked about the elements of IELCE 243 programs, and you had an opportunity to write an action plan, which sounds like was helpful to you. We thank you so much for attending. Again, here's my contact information and all the information at CASAS.